So this is the next story. This is out of the Daily Beast, and this is the actual web page. But here I have the full article up, and let me just show you what I want to focus on here. The woman's image here is the former Republican head of the Republican Party. And I just want to be clear here on one thing, and that is that the Republican Party in Michigan, in the swing state of Michigan, it is extremely important that Donald Trump and that the Republicans maintain Michigan. And they're going through it right now because Democrats are slowly retaking the state, and they're retaking their getting more and more power. And the problem that they have is Michigan has been taking over, the Republican Party has been taken over by MAGA crazies and deniers of the 2020 election and Donald Trump's sycophants. And I have said many times that what we're living through is a civil war between the Republican Party. It is a civil war between, on one side, MAGA, and on the other side, conservatism and traditional conservatives. And they're trying to fight to rule this party going forward. I don't see it as much as what you'll hear a lot of people say is that this is a fight between democracy and authoritarian. Both sides are authoritarian, in my opinion. Whether it is Donald Trump, who is a fascist and who wants to lead this country with an iron fist, or the conservative movement, which in the state level has always been authoritarian, has always wanted to prevent blacks from voting, has always wanted to prevent any kind of accountability or an attempt to address the issue of white nationality, of racism, of sexism, of LGBTQ and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to go into Florida in a minute, but both sides are rowing in the same direction. It's tactics. It's the way they go about doing this. Donald Trump is a blunt object. He's not about sitting there and waiting. He wants to take this on right now, and he wants to have control of the party. And the Liz Cheneys of the world, they want to do the same thing, but they want it to be held on a state level, controlled forever by Republicans and by conservatives, forcing that down their throats. So, so the war that is happening in the Republican Party is on full display in Michigan. So you've got in Michigan what I've just basically said, which is you've got the MAGA side on one side, and it's in the form of this woman, Kristina Karamo. She is a MAGA and a Donald Trump's officiant, supplicant, basically. And she is, if she were white, she's black. If she were white, she would be the most racist GOP person right now. But, it is what it is. It goes further to my evidence that I say to black people all the time, just because the other person on the other side of a transaction is black, don't think that they have your interest or don't think that they think like you do. And Karamo is one of those people who is for Donald Trump, has tried to basically steal vote, take vote away from black folks in Michigan. But I'm going to go through this and just detail the things that are fascinating on this. So this story is Josh Fialo with the Daily Beast. The title is Michigan's GOP chair drama takes another nasty turn. And the article goes on to say, less than a month before it's set to host the key presidential primary, Michigan's GOP leadership remains in disarray, with the party's contested chairwoman, Kristina Karamo, slamming the Republican National Committee in a letter to its members on Tuesday. Karamo, who was ousted by her fellow state party members this month, but claims her removal was illegal, accused the RNC of colluding against her after it ruled last week that she was indeed properly removed from her position. Both Karamo and Pete Hoekstra now say they're the current party chair in Michigan, with both Republicans recently issuing statements through official Michigan GOP channels adding to the confusion as who's in charge. So what do we have here? What are we seeing? What we're seeing is that Karamo is like Donald Trump did in 2020, saying that there was fraud in the election. So she is saying essentially that she is still the rightfully elected chair of the party, of the GOP, and that the method by which the party removed her was illegal. Just exactly what Donald Trump did in the 2020 election. But at that time, it was Democrats. Now she's saying it's her own GOP compatriots that are engaging in illegal attempt to steal or to take her down and take her out. And Pete Hoekstra is apparently the new GOP chair that they put in. Pete Hoekstra is a well-known name. With Michigan being a key battleground state in 2024 election, the RNC stepped in last week to make a ruling that possibly put an end to the mess, writing that its lawyers determined the process that led to Karamo's ouster was legitimate. The decision has only raised tensions in the party. However, with Karamo asserting in Tuesday's letter that the RNC and Hoekstra, a former House member and ambassador to the Netherlands, colluded to have her removed. She also issued a warning to the GOP chairs across the country, writing, "Your state could be next." Quote, "RNC legal told me that they stay out of these matters and that it is up to the state to send their chair. However, the actions contradict what they told me," wrote Karamo. Hoekstra was on a radio show last week bragging that he expected the RNC to weigh in a day or two, and that it is precisely what happens. Karamo, an election denier, has made spouting conspiracy theories, especially those regarding the 2020 presidential race, part of her MO, including bizarre claims that Democrats drink the blood of children and sell baby parts after abortions. Michigan's GOP has been in financial turmoil under Karamo's leadership, with court filings alleging that the party has been in default on loan payments for the last 3 months, Raw Story reported. Those money issues and general dysfunction were cited by the state GOP members as reason they voted to oust Karamo. While the RNC called Karamo's removal legitimate, against her claims that a proper process wasn't followed during the voting, the National Committee has stopped short of outright saying that Hoekstra is the state party leader. So, what do we have here? It's a total crap show. A total crap show. And it couldn't have happened to a better party, in my opinion. Because this is what happens when you sit back and you allow people to spew off nonsense about election conspiracy theories and things being stolen and votes being stolen. Because all you do is you create the very problems that you think that you're so slick you're going to get past by disenfranchising black people and by using the false whole narrative of voter fraud. All they have created now is a distrust of the voting system. And that has allowed this woman Karamo and Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, to infect the elections so that they now no longer trust any elections. And that's ultimately destroying the party, right? Civil war. That's what a civil war does. It ends both sides, or it inflicts damages to both sides. But I want to go into this because she claims that this whole thing was orchestrated. It's a scam or whatnot. But this is a reporting. This is from the AP. This was on January 6th. This is her ousting, the reporting on her ousting. And it says Michigan Republicans have voted to remove election denier and state GOP chairwoman Kristina Karamo during a meeting on Saturday after many of the party leaders called for her resignation following a year of leadership plagued by debt and infighting. Nearly 89% of those voted to oust Karamo, said Bree District 2 State Committee woman. About 45 people, not including proxies, attended the meeting. Let me note something that I'm doing here so that you guys can see this. This right here, the three dots right here, is like an ellipsis. When you see these, when I have these placed, it means that I have cut out portions of this so that for time I have removed portions. So I'm skipping ahead. When you see these three dots, I will provide links if you're interested in, as well as in this on this site, as well as in Mastodon, um, to the actual articles. And by the way, just in case if people are unaware, the Mastodon site is for the show is mastodon.vtip.me at what you missed. That is the Mastodon for the show. Anybody who's looking to take a look at these actual articles and links, let me know. Reach out to me on Mastodon, and I will post them there so that you can read the full articles. I encourage you to do that because these are excellent articles. But going on, this is again AP. Karamo, a former community college instructor, rose through the Michigan's Republican ranks by spreading election conspiracies after the 2020 election. She eventually was backed by former President Donald Trump in her run for Secretary of State in 2022, losing by 14 points. And to a result she refused to concede. State Committeewoman Darlene Dozell voted in favor of Karamo and was outraged by Saturday's votes. Now this is, get this, this is the best part. Let's call it what it is. It's all white in there, Dozell said of the membership voting Saturday. Let's not mistake this. You've got a black woman in power, a Christian, and they don't want that. Dozell is white. So this is another phenomenon you're going to see. Black people who are conservatives, who spend their entire lives talking about how there is no racism. Racism doesn't exist anymore in America. Racism is something that the Democrats want you to believe that exists. The liberals want you to believe there is no more racism. When they're under fire and they're a person of color and they're black, they begin to say it's racist. And this is not her saying. This is a white woman who is an ally who's saying that this is racism. So, I mean, this just, you just see this over and over again. Clarence Thomas claimed it was a lynching when he got hit with hard questions when he was being put on the Supreme Court. And he has later spent his entire time on the court talking about how there's no more racism, racism is dead and all that. But when he was under fire, he used the specter of lynching, which is exclusively to blacks, a punishment almost exclusively associated with African Americans. That was his excuse for why he was being treated the way he was. Again, this isn't Karamo saying this. This is one of her surrogates saying it. But let's be clear. This is her. Agreeing or saying this, because she certainly didn't come out and condemn this person and say that no, this isn't racism, right? So anyway, another interesting phenomena that you'll see this amongst black conservatives. In February, Karamo was elected by grassroots activists alongside her co-chair, Melinda Pago, to lead the state party through 2024. Less than a year later, Pago signed onto a petition seeking a vote to remove Karamo. 8 of the state party's 13 congressional district chairs called on Karamo to resign last week, citing financial instability stemming from insufficient fundraising and asking Karamo to put an end to the chaos in our party by stepping down. So again, not only do we have here a phenomenon where you have a person who probably shouldn't, I mean, you want to talk about affirmative action, but I don't even want to go into it. But here it is. They thought that they were elevating a woman of color because they could probably see themselves as not being what they are, which is doubling down on racism, a party that wants to prevent blacks from voting in Michigan. They put this woman who's a black woman, and she's more racist than the white people. How do I know that? Well, let me take a look at this article here. And this is from the Detroit Free Press. Karamo outrageously was trying to get Detroit, only Detroit, to have to go through all kind of hoops to vote because of rampant fraud only in Detroit. Now, if you don't know anything about Michigan, one of the things you should know is that Detroit is almost all black. It's primarily black. So when you decide to target, which Donald Trump did in 2020, only certain areas of a state and only certain states, and those states and those areas happen to have all black or majority black community, you need to call it out for what it is. And it is racism, straight up racism. But it is even more acute that this is a woman of color who's pushing this garbage. And the judge, I believe a white judge, isn't buying this, right? So this is again, this is in the Free Press. This is from November of last year, November 7th of 2022, right? This woman had been Karamo had been a Donald Trump surrogate and had been trying to do everything she could to prevent blacks from voting and to overturn the elections by throwing out the votes in Detroit. That was what got her into the MAGA movement. That's what got her on the radar, and that's what got her elevated in the Republican Party, right? So let's be clear. And by the way, in that last article, the reason why they're removing her is not because of all the racism and all the outrageous things that she said in these court filings and what she has done to try and further the racist lie that there was all of this fraudulent voting by the blacks in Detroit. No, it wasn't that. It was the woman is terrible at bookkeeping. And she's created chaos. Chaos that they thought that they could make money off of, that they thought could help them win elections by supporting Trump and her and his acolytes, of which Karamo is one of them. But I'm just going to read this quickly here. In a blistering opinion issued the day before the midterm election, Wayne County Circuit Court Judge Timothy Kenny Monday rejected a request from Kristina Karamo, the Republican vying to serve as the Michigan's next chief elections officer, to expand election observers across access in Detroit absentee ballot counting room and subject Detroit voters and election officials to a different set of rules than the rest of the state. In his order on Monday, Kenny dismissed the lawsuit, which was filed less than 2 weeks before the midterm elections, and initially asked the court to halt the count of absentee ballots for the November 8th election, not requested in person by Detroit voters. Quote, plaintiffs have raised a false flag of election law violations and corruptions concerning Detroit's procedures for the November 8th election, Kenny wrote in his opinion. Quote, this court's ruling takes down that flag. Kenny said that those who brought the lawsuit, quote, sat on their hands for months before bringing a complaint that would, quote, create the potential harm of disenfranchising tens of thousands of Detroiters in the election Tuesday. Quote, this is unacceptable and cannot be permitted. In a brief filed Friday, lawyers representing Karamo and other plaintiffs in the case modified the request to prevent the count of absentee ballots Detroit voters requested in person. The brief instead asked the court to prohibit voters from requesting absentee ballots by mail or online without presenting identification for all future elections until the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, established rules instructing election administrators how to verify voter signatures. Benson attempted to do so before the election Tuesday, but the GOP-led legislative committee punted on the matter, delaying the action until after the election. So, what do we have here? One, we have collusion on the part of the Republican Party. Two, we have an election denier. And three, we have blatant in-your-face racism by this black woman, a Republican MAGA GOP person who was colluding with the GOP, with the Republicans. That was their guy, their gal, I should say, on the ticket to hopefully become the new elections individual, the Secretary of State in Michigan, right? They know that not only do you have mostly Democrats, but you have most African Americans in Detroit vote in Detroit, in Michigan. And they wanted to make it as difficult as possible for those black Detroiters to vote because they know that that those votes are not going to be for GOP and for Republicans. And they're racist. Kenny wrote that in the 48 hours between November 2nd and November 4th, plaintiffs' relief request changed 3 times, and he dismissed the request for the court's intervention in future elections as moot. He said that during the evidentiary hearing that lasted nearly 9 hours last week, those who brought the lawsuit failed to produce any shred of evidence. So what the court is basically saying is they lied. They didn't produce a shred of evidence that there was any voter fraud or any need of this. All they produced was the fact that these are black people, they live in Detroit, and they believe that because they're black and because they live in Detroit, that there must be rampant voter fraud. This is a black woman again. I want to underline that. This is a black woman colluding with the Republican Party to push this bull crap. And most importantly, this is a problem of their own creation, because they thought that they could play ball with MAGA. They thought they could play ball with this woman Karamo. They thought they could do these corrupt things and that they wouldn't pay a price for it. And now they have, because it's now total chaos in the Republican Party in Michigan. And we're in an election year. And Donald Trump needs to win Michigan in order to win the presidency. And Michigan is a total mess. So is Wisconsin. I'm not even going to go into that, but I've reported on that before. But it's a total crap show right now what's going on in Michigan, and it's a crap show because, not in spite of, but because of the Republican Party's decision to try and go along with the MAGA BS that they've been pushing for such a long time. And like I said, it couldn't have happened to a nicer party. It couldn't have happened to a nicer group of people. I am glad that the Civil War is brewing. The Civil War is happening, and it is of their own creation. They deserve to have what's happening to them. So, on that note, I am going to sign off. And there was more I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into this other storyline that I was talking about with regard to the authoritarianism happening on Facebook and in social media, but it'll have to be for next time. Again, you can find this on stream.vtip.me to a live stream, as well as on this YouTube channel. I will not be on next Monday, but the Monday after that we'll have another show, unless I come in on Wednesday because there's some incredible breaking news. But until that time, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.